Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
I've always wanted to ask this question. Were you watching the Super Bowl
Yes.
at the moment that Justin
Absolutely
Timberlake
was.
removed the ornament from the bustier? Is that what it is?
I was
The
sitting on a
ornament
couch in a neighbor's
from the
house.
bustier of
Yes.
You were watching.
I was watching
I was
live.
not.
You were not watching because you knew it would be indecent.
No, I got up during the
You
halftime
knew
and was
it would be
wandering around.
indecent,
I
but
wasn't
you were
watching the halftime
watching.
show.
And when it happened, here's my question: and when it happened, did you immediately say, "I'm going to find these people"?
This is exactly what happened. I was sitting at a neighbor's party on a couch watching the halftime show, and first of all, it sort of jumped out at me that, wow, this is a little racier than usual, because the dance is pretty wild as it was, and so I was watching, and all of a sudden I saw it, and I turned to my neighbor and I said, did you just see what I just saw, or am I dreaming? He goes, I think so. And we still weren't sure. And I went home and fired up my TiVo and started rewinding and realized, oh my God. And then the news started going, and I just said to turned to my wife and I said, tomorrow's going to really suck. And it did. And you knew you had to sort of do everything you could to get up and ahead of that issue as fast as you could, just so it didn't completely spin off the rails. I mean, 550,000.
But you did become the only FCC chairman in history who was on Monday Night Football.
I did.
Talk about
did.
that.
Okay. Although I haven't been in a Janet video yet, which I was hoping to get.
There's still time.
There's still time. One last thing, though, about the indecency thing, and I think Kevin obliquely touched on it, too. The real problem here is the way the Supreme Court interprets the Constitution, which creates the difficulty. The Supreme Court said, dating back a long time ago, that somehow broadcast is different, that somehow these things the government can enforce without First Amendment implications, or certainly on a lesser standard, the kind of content that goes on broadcast TV. But to get back to my point about my children, I think this is becoming an increasingly untenuous distinction. Because if you look through the eyes and ears of consumers, there aren't any of these distinctions of any meaning anymore. You know, over 94% of Americans subscribe to cable or broadcast, or DirecTV or Dish TV platforms. The internet is a different place. The idea that we have different First Amendments for each of those medium, depending on how they're used, and the notion that my children are uniquely subject to broadcast when mine can pop open an iPhone and be watching YouTube videos in a second, I just think is untenable. And I think, frankly, I'll be even more direct and say, I think the Supreme Court has been irresponsible in not taking a case that would help the Commission and the government understand what the proper parameters of the First Amendment are in the modern context, and not vague references back to the 60s, the way TV was, 40 or 50 years ago. It's just not helpful. And I don't know about them, but to me, I found that made my job very, very difficult.
Kevin Martin.